Okay, Bismillah, walhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalam ala Rasulillah, Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala ali Muhammad, kama sallit ala Ibrahim wa ala Ibrahim. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. My name is Iyad Wazwaz. I am the principal of Crescent View Academy, and today our guest speaker is Imam Shakir Muhammad. He is the president of the Islamic Center of Fort Collins and assumes the role of Imam at the Islamic Center in Fort Collins. Today, our topic is about charity in Islam. And amidst our stay home or shelter in place orders that are going on during this blessed month of Ramadan, we wanted to take the opportunity to have a very casual discussion on what types of charities are there, what can we do from our homes, what can we do virtually, um, is charity only monetary funds, or are there other forms of charity in Islam that we should be considering? With the masajid being closed and a lot of the nonprofits not functioning right now, it kind of makes it difficult for us to make our choices and decisions as to what can I do during this blessed month to gain potentially the highest amount of sadaqah or rewards that can be used for my akhirah, inshallah. Muslims typically like to use the month of Ramadan to give charity because the rewards are multiplied. And we try to reach out to different venues in our larger communities and local communities. Sometimes charity is services, and sometimes charity is time, and sometimes charity is just checking in with somebody. And so that's what we're going to take the time today to discuss with our beloved Imam Shakir Muhammad from the Islamic Center of Fort Collins. He's the Imam who assumes the role at this time at the center. And inshallah, Imam, if you can share with us the different types of charities that we can easily access or utilize to our benefits during this holy month, inshallah.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه ومن والاه. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, Br Iyad, and those listeners. Alhamdulillah, of course, we're in the month of Ramadan, and this is a month where everyone is trying to be keen, inshallah, with gaining closeness to Allah, spending time with those around them, trying to get connected with the Quran more than they perhaps have throughout the year. As time goes on, we forget and perhaps become less motivated. Alhamdulillah, Ramadan is here for us to, if you will, rejuvenate our batteries. So Ramadan is here. There's fasting, there's Quran, and also there's sadaqah. And there is also zakah, as many Muslims hold off to give their zakah in the month of Ramadan. And we know that the hasanat, the good deeds that people do in the month of Ramadan, inshallah, it is rewarded in multifold with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah the Most High. So people like to give their zakah within the month of Ramadan. And as far as giving zakah, we know that we should give it within the lunar calendar. So if we have excess wealth, primarily in regards to zakah on our savings, if we have excess wealth that we've held for 1 year, then we give zakah on that wealth. And it should be done within the lunar calendar. It shouldn't be done every February or every January, but every year within the lunar calendar. And as we have for the Muslims or the Hijri calendar, we go by the moon, of course. So those who give it in Ramadan would give it, inshallah, again in Ramadan to fulfill the requirement of Islam. So of course we have the zakah as people who are given, who have excess wealth and so on, or even large amounts of livestock and things like that. But we also have the charity or sadaqah, that is due in different ways. The Prophet ﷺ taught us that even if we give something, even if to protect ourselves from the punishment of Allah, or that we will see closer to Allah, even if we give sadaqah by a half a date. So even if we have just something very, very small to give for the sake of Allah, to help our Muslim brothers and sisters, then we would give with a half of a date. And there's also hadith where the Prophet ﷺ, may Allah's peace and blessing be upon him, where he taught us that of the best forms of sadaqah or charity that we can give, the best place to start is with our family. So if we, if we want to give to people down the street, across the world, and so on, we have to start with our family. So our family cannot be in need of our help, and we go to other people first. Yes, we start with our family, and then inshallah go to others. And the ones who are also most deserving also is our neighbors. There's some matter in the fiqh, or even we have from the example of the early Muslims, is that they gave sadaqah, they would give where they lived. So it isn't only that we have to give halfway around the world. And yes, there are Muslims who are in more dire situations than we are perhaps in northern Colorado, but there are also brothers and sisters around us who are in need of our help. So if we can, inshallah, give to those who are far, give to those who are near, and give with a half a day to charity, give sadaqah with a smile, as you know from the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And also we have where the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam mentioned that on every joint or small bone in the body, there is sadaqah due. So we have to move our body and limbs in the path of Allah and sadaqah. And even if we perform the salat al-duha, that might be a portion of it, or even to remove something harmful from the road, that is a part of sadaqah also. So we have sadaqah that is actions, sadaqah that is donations by even a small thing like a half a date, and sadaqah to those who are near to us and those who are far to us and those who are relatives. So let us find any chance to make sadaqah, goodness for ourselves and goodness for those who are around us. So that's the discussion, zakah and sadaqah during the month of Ramadan.
I would, just coming back on the month of Ramadan, one of the things that we typically do in following the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ is zakat al-fitr. And there are different opinions, obviously, on how zakat al-fitr is how it is distributed. Some people have a tradition of giving money, and some people have a tradition of giving the actual product of rice and lentils and sugar and so forth. What would you suggest, or how should people find comfort in which method, perhaps, to give? I know that the American Muslim Jurists Association just released a fatwa today that in the current condition that we are in the COVID-19 pandemic, that giving cash as your zakat al-fitr is permissible. Typically traditionally we typically give it towards the last 5 days of Ramadan, but in this case they're saying if you know somebody that's in need, you can give it sooner. Can you shed any light on that discussion as well?
I would say if anyone has a particular imam or a Islamic organization, or especially their local masjid, seek your help and guidance from this from your imam. I think especially in regards to you, your family, perhaps your siblings, you might all attend the masjid. So I think the local imam could give you guidance in how to fulfill the commandment the best they can, the best we can. But certainly there's a discussion among the scholars. Do we stick to the traditional way that the Prophet ﷺ described the zakat al-fitr to be paid? Or do we look to the need of the time and the situation? And some of the scholars also mentioned that some of the early Muslims, they perhaps had given the zakat al-fitr to those around them. It wasn't in the form of food stock. It was in the form of what they were in need of receiving. So inshallah, with the masajid that we have with the Islamic organizations within our state, within the nation, I would say number one, let each person find what is the best option for them. Because there will be some who are giving food to the needy, and that will fulfill one aspect of the void. And inshallah, there will be, of course, some who rely on the fatwa of the scholar who say, give the need, fulfill the need. So there will be some who fulfill it with cash or things like that. So the main thing is give what you can, help those who are needy, and seek Allah's help and guidance, and refer to the local imams and scholars that you have, and no one will be at a loss, inshallah, with the sadaqah, with the zakat al-fitr that they give for the sake of Allah.
And even if your local masjid is not in operation right now, you can still contact your local imam via the main line or whatever communication they have on their website. Most masajids still have somebody answering phone calls and answering emails. So you should be able to get into touch with your local imam of your community. Just for any of our guests that are viewers today, please, if you have any questions, you can put them in the message box and we will be able to address them. So I also just want to get back that talk to your masajid. You know, masajids count a lot on the weekly donations, whether it was $1 every Friday, $5, $20, or $100. All of those funds made a difference to the local masajid. So although they're not in operation, it doesn't mean they don't have expenses. So just reach out to them and see what their needs are as well. If you're in the position to be able to help with any kind of financial contributions, please reach out to them. And as Imam Shakir also said, it's not necessarily just monetary sadaqah. You can see what kind of support you can give them virtually. Sometimes they might need help with their social media. Sometimes they might need help redesigning their website. They might need help editing press releases or communications. All of those are acts of sadaqah when you're doing them for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, inshallah.
Yeah, and you're right. I wanted to mention on that. Even the companions came to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam in regards to those who couldn't give charity. They said that in this hadith in Sahih Muslim, they said the wealthy have gone with the highest ranks of lasting bliss. So the wealthy, they would give sadaqah, they would make the hajj, they would make the prayer, they would do all the things that the less wealthy or the poor Muslims would do, and they would do it extra. So they were trying to find a way how they can gain excellence with Allah and secure a good station with Allah in the akhirah. And the Prophet ﷺ told them that they can make adhkar, that they can remember Allah, say subhanallah, alhamdulillah, la ilaha illallah. There's still these things that a person can have a form of sadaqah as we define the various things that sadaqah could mean. But as you said, a person can simply make a flyer for the Islamic Center and send out to their friends, or paste on Facebook. There are many ways that a person can do good for themselves and do good for the local masjid, especially if their masjid isn't up to speed on the technology and the WhatsApp or the Zoom or the online donating, then they definitely need our help. So let all of us find ways to pitch in and help our local community.
And subhanAllah, that's one of the beauties of Islam, how Allah makes it so many different opportunities for us to get rewarded for our good deeds and actions. We have a question on our board here. It says, is there value of donating every day throughout Ramadan or in one lump sum at the end?
Well, there's hadith in which the Prophet ﷺ which described that he will become more giving and more, if you will, in tune with the merits that Ramadan has in the last 10 days. So perhaps a person is inclined to do more, so perhaps in the last 10 days than they are in the beginning of the month. But also we know that to do things, if you will, in a repetitive manner or as a sadaqah jariyah, if we're in habit of doing something, there's also goodness in that. So, and then back to the question or the statement that you made, Brother Iyad, there are some people who are needing money now. So if we don't have to delay it to the last 10 days, if it's just a preference, then perhaps we've always done it in the last 10 days, Allah inshallah would give us the reward of having waited to the last 10 days, and of course, especially helping our Muslim brother and sister in need. So inshallah, we'll find a magnified reward if we give it to the Muslims when they need it, or even if you will, the local organizations that aren't Muslim-based that definitely help the needy. But if we give the people their need when the need is there, there's much reward in that, instead of saying, I'm going to wait a certain time. So there's no loss, but primarily it is helping the needy when they have the need.
And that's a good segue. The next question, which you already touched base on, but maybe you can just further elaborate, is it better to donate financially? Is it better to donate financially to Muslim organizations or masajid or individuals in need who possibly lost their jobs or unemployment?
And again, a person has to look to what is the best for their community. Perhaps, mashallah, some of the masajid in Colorado, they might have a Jummah attendance perhaps of maybe 500 people or 1,000 people. And inshallah, a person can feel that our other Muslim brothers and sisters, they're giving to the masjid. But my immigrant or my resident Muslim friend, he lives on the outside of town, and I know he lost his job and so on. Who is giving to that Muslim who is in need? Perhaps it's not 1,000 people to donate. Perhaps it is one person, and that is you. So in doing our own calculation with ourselves in our mind and finding the need of the masjid and the need of those around us, we can find the answer to that. But definitely, if you say, how many people are helping that needy family? Maybe it's very few. And how many perhaps will give to the masjid? Maybe it's more. So perhaps in that equation, we might say the needy Muslim who attacks, maybe they are in need, and inshallah, their need from perhaps the online fundraisers, the mass emails, the website, and so on. So each person do the equation for themselves, inshallah.
And I know some brothers and sisters in the community actually who received the COVID-19 stimulus checks. And although they were not in need of them, they made the intention that during the month of Ramadan, they were going to share those funds with their families and community members, either internationally or abroad and locally here in Colorado. And I thought that was the real spirit of the mu'min, the believer, is here Allah has blessed me with funds that I don't necessarily need, and I'm going to help support others, whether they're my family members living abroad in countries where the circumstances are much worse, or if it's anybody locally. Imam, before we move on that, is it wrong if I'm in need of zakah or sadaqah and I have a friend or family member who I know is comfortable, is it Islamically inappropriate for me to ask for sadaqah?
Within our community, and as people, especially during this time, I mean, there are people who perhaps work their whole entire life, and now they are in need, and they are very shy to ask people for help. And this is one aspect that we have to have in our families and also in the Muslim communities, because there are some hadith that talk about not given to the people who ask. So how do we know who is needy? If we don't observe the slight differences, we might say, okay, mashallah, brother so-and-so had a BMW, now he's driving a Toyota, whatever, the smallest model there is. So we can think, well, what happened? Did he sell his car for a need? And now so we have to be conscious of our surroundings, of our Muslim brother and sister, and connect with them. So there is a matter, like I said, in Islam and in Hadith regarding giving to the ones who ask, not giving to them, and reserving your money for the people who don't ask. So that is there. But perhaps because of our connections, because we don't live together, because we live miles and blocks away from each other, how is brother so-and-so or sister so-and-so to know that I'm actually in need? So inshallah, a person tries their best, sincere to Allah, and fulfills their need, and we can't let pride get in the way. And if we don't ask, then perhaps our wife or our children or our husband or our children, they are actually going without. So we have to find a way to be sincere and to be modest, but inshallah, make sure our needs get met. We shouldn't let pride or a misunderstanding of Islamic concepts not allow us to receive the help from our Muslim brother and sister, especially when obviously, inshallah, they're able to help.
Imam, we have another question that came in. It says, many scholars have said our student loan debt supersedes giving zakah or sadaqat to others. Can you speak on if this debt means we qualify for sadaqah or exempt us from giving?
The basic idea on debt, and even in regards to fulfilling your pilgrimage. So you might say, I have X amount of money that is in debt that I have to pay for my student loans, perhaps, and can I make the Hajj? In regards to that, basically, if we are able to make the payments, if you will, and still perform the acts of worship, then we should do that. And I think for the most part, as most of the loan situations go, the bank has perhaps what's required to pay, and then the rest of your wealth is yours. Of course, we should pay it off as soon as we can. Don't give the minimum payments every month, because then you're actually treading water. But most of the loan operations or the items we have to pay back, they don't mind that you spend your money in other avenues. But if the person you're indebted to, and it could be a Muslim person, if you're indebted to them to pay this amount, and you say, "Oh, I'm gonna do something else with my wealth," that isn't what we should do. So if we can pay back the payment within the stated time, and fulfill our obligations like giving charity or making pilgrimage, and of course, making Hajj costs money. If we can fulfill the payment obligations while we're doing our acts of worship, then that's fine, inshallah. But especially if we're very close to paying it off, we should pay it off. We should pay it off as soon as we can. We shouldn't delay. But inshallah, navigate it the best we can and fulfill your acts of worship, and be sure to make the obligation payments that you have.
I think the second part of that question too is, if I am in debt, do I qualify for zakah or sadaqah?
Actually, yes. In Surah Tawbah, one of the matters of those who receive zakat would be the debtors. And if you look at the ayah in Surah Tawbah, I forget what ayah it is, but yes, those who are in debt are among those who may receive zakat. So inshallah, feel free to notify the agencies that would dispense zakat in your neighborhood or in your local masjid and so on, that inshallah you would be of those who would qualify for receiving zakat, inshallah.
Yeah, I also have seen that policy, or that jurisprudence, that a person that is in debt can qualify as well. There's a question, I think it's kind of for the leadership of Colorado, perhaps as a member of the Imam Council. Will Colorado Muslims ever see a joint sadaqah, zakah fund, or operating budget that would manage the sadaqah, kind of like a waqf or a endowment of some sort, that would oversee how zakah and sadaqah funds are collected and distributed in the state of Colorado? I think that's probably a North America problem.
Yep. And in regards to the 8 who will receive zakah, you can find it in Surah Tawbah, Surah 9, verse 60. 9, verse 60, you can find the 8 described as the ones who receive zakah, and definitely the debtor is one of them. Yes, the one thing about the Islamic organizations in the US, definitely in Colorado, definitely in Denver area, and definitely in the regions that we live in here in Colorado, each one of them operates independently. And some of them have fundraisers and projects, and others have, so it's very hard to get that established. We certainly can. I would say probably if there are some brothers and sisters in the community, perhaps who have accounting skills, who have MBA, who have a good network between all the masajid and all the imams and all the Muslim organizations, I would encourage some people to come up and say, we will take the place of if you will, zakatul mal. And we have good relations with everyone around us. We know the organizations, we know the masajid. We will collect the money, and then we will distribute it to where it's needed. So I think the best streamlined process is there to be an entity outside the masajid that work with the masajid. And I think that's an easier path to do it, and it creates less gridlock, because if you say every masjid has a board of directors and executives, so perhaps in every masjid there's 15 people plus the imam. So then in turn you're saying there's going to be 200 people who want to have a say-so in how this money is collected and distributed. So if this outside entity works with them, I think that's the best process to take. So the questioner, I would say perhaps people within your circle that maybe you can get the ball rolling on having certainly a unified sadaqah donation, or even zakatul mal, as it could be said. I'm sorry, zakatul baitul mal.
I think there are already circles in some communities where community members come together. They have a very close circle of network, and they collect their zakat together and distribute it. So I think it's happening at grassroots levels. But I think that it's definitely something, as Muslims in North America continue to grow, we should definitely look into systems that we can follow nationwide. Just as a reminder, almost all of the masajid or Islamic centers have some sort of Muslim food relief going on. You can also check on the Colorado Muslim websites or Facebook pages of different activities going on. They always need volunteers, even during this time. I believe they're all following the CDC, Department of Public Health requirements for grouping and distributing food products. So please do look into that as well. We have another question that says regarding the debts. So if I purchase a car for $30,000 and I get into debt, do I qualify for zakat even if I put myself in debt as a personal choice?
I guess you're saying, is there a debt that is more worthy and needed versus a debt that is more of a luxury? Allah knows best. I mean, a person can take it upon themselves to calculate their situation. Definitely, if a person can do without receiving zakah, certainly it'll be safe for the Muslim community members who are more in need. Of course, the zakah and sadaqah is limited at the masjid. So if we can forego receiving the help, and perhaps we don't need it that direly, perhaps it can be safe for someone else. So just as a general advice, if we don't have to take it and we have a debt, then leave it for those who are certainly indebted over their head, if you will, and who can't crawl out except to receive donation from the Muslim community.
And I think it's circumstantial. If I need that vehicle because I'm an Uber driver, then that's a business investment. If I have a family of 6 and I need a minivan that's reliable to be able to transport maybe my 6 children who have an illness to Children's Hospital, and I need a reliable vehicle, then sometimes people have to make those choices in order to sustain themselves and in order to function. And so I think it's really about circumstances. What required you? I mean, did you just on the whim go purchase a vehicle for 30,000? No, I mean that's bad decision making. But if you're trying to make rational, good decisions, and you end up getting into debt, then I think that's where you qualify. My understanding as well.
And even just to use the practical terms that we're talking about, are you talking about a contract that you would end that you have to pay back, or you are in debt and you cannot pay it back? So those are still two different things. Inshallah, the person who purchased the car, who purchased whatever, they're paying it back. But it's not like the one who cannot pay it back and they're overwhelmed with payments and so on. So still there's a difference, inshallah, and each person, like you said, based on the situation and sincerity, can look to perhaps a Muslim brother or sister who is more in need, and for themselves not to exhaust the funds from the Islamic or Islamic organization.
Jazakallah khair, Imam Shakir from Fort Collins. Today our discussion was about the different types of charity in Islam. What can we do during this blessed holy month of Ramadan to maximize the benefits of our zakah and sadaqah? We discussed with Imam Shakir the different kinds of sadaqah. Zakah obviously is a mandatory form of charity or alms that's paid on our wealth. And then the mandatory and non-mandatory types of sadaqah that we can contribute, whether it's sharing of wealth, sharing of time, or even making specific dua for ourselves and our loved ones as well. So all of those are types of charities, sadaqahs that can be maximized during the month of Ramadan. We talked about zakat al-fitr, and does it need to be delayed towards the end or during this pandemic? Can we share it as soon as we think someone has a use or benefit from? All of those were areas that we shed some light on. Imam Shakir, if you can do a closing dua for us, inshallah. Or if you have
I want to also excuse my backdrop. I wanted to have a simple backdrop behind me. And as Brother Iyad, as you said, I'm president of the Islamic Center for Collins and fulfill the role of Imam. So performing the khutbah and marrying people. So I do the things that Imam does, but that isn't my official title. I wanted to show that so much to have a simple common man backdrop. Inshallah, I ride a bike. Brother Iyad, do you get out there? You have a bike to ride?
I don't have a bike at this point, but I have a really nice walking paths in my neighborhood that I get to benefit from.
Okay, there you go. And I also wanted to give one last story from our community. And inshallah, give what you can, and inshallah, Allah will replace it. I was talking to Brother Iyad before we came on live. Those who give sadaqah, and you can perhaps ask those who give that you might know give at the fundraisers and so on. And Brother Iyad verified it. Those who give every year, they're not decreased in wealth. And the Prophet ﷺ said that charity does not decrease the wealth. So a person shouldn't feel, inshallah, that they will not have money tomorrow or next month if they give sadaqah. And of course, take care of your means, take care of your responsibilities. If you have a light bill that's due tomorrow and you give your money today, well, the light company will probably come around and turn off your lights. But do what you can and rely on Allah. And one story that we have from our community, there's a brother who was fundraising in Chicago for our Islamic Center just before we had completed the construction. And there's a brother who donated, and he went to write the check, and he pulled the check from his checkbook, and the check ripped. And the brother who was fundraising for our masjid, he said, no, give me the check. Don't write another one. I'll just tape it together. And the brother who was doing it said, no, give me that piece back. He ripped it up and he wrote a larger amount. So to him, that was a reminder or a sign as he took it that Allah is telling him he should write more, he can give more, and don't worry, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah the Exalted and the Most High, will replace what he was giving and increase him with more. So inshallah, those who can, please give and don't be afraid of poverty. Allah and His Prophet ﷺ reminds us that do not fear poverty by giving charity, and all the rundown and the summary that you gave, Brother Iyad. Thank you for me being on the call today, and those who set up this program. Inshallah, please tune in for more. And I will simply say, recite the surah that the companions would often say when they separated, and that is Surah Al-Asr. And as it says, وَالْعَصْرِ بِسْمِ اللَّهِ الرَّحْمَنِ الرَّحِيمِ وَالْعَصْرِ إِنَّ الْإِنسَانَ لَفِي خُسْرٍ إِلَّا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالْحَقِّ وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالصَّبْرِ وَجَزَاكَ اللَّهُ خَيْرًا وَالسَّلَامُ عَلَيْكُمْ وَرَحْمَةُ اللَّهِ وَبَرَكَاتُهُ.
And just a quick reminder to our audience, please remember to practice the shelter in place, safer at home, practice social distancing, and just keep your families protected and safe. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to have mercy on our ummah and all of mankind. And jazakumullah khair, barakallah fikum for attending tonight. Ramadan Mubarak, and inshallah you have a blessed month. Barakallah fikum.